7:45. Welcome back to BT Vancouver on this Thursday morning. We're going to talk now about stopping the spread of systemic racism through positive change. The entire world has been captivated by these images of protests and demonstrations all over the world in the wake of the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. We're going to bring in Ninu Kang right now from MOSAIC. Welcome to BT.
Good morning, Clark.
Ninu, when you see these images of all these people, these groups of these masses of demonstrators galvanized by the death of George Floyd, what goes through your mind?
Well, I have mixed feelings. Continuing to see the image of George Floyd take his last breaths in front of the public is traumatizing, and like it is for many. But it's also heartwarming to see so many people from across the globe, really, and of course in the United States and Canada, people coming together and uprising. And protest is one of the fundamental pillars of democracy. And we know that change, real change on difficult issues has only occurred after people have come together and have said no, no more. And so it's really heartwarming, and the way that people are protesting by lying on streets and by kneeling and by being together, people from all races, colors, creed. And so, you know, it's a moment in history where people are saying no more systemic violence against Black people and Black communities. And all of us who aren't Black really have to ask ourselves some really tough questions about how are we part of the problem, or how can we be part of the solution?
That's a good distinction. And I want to mention some of the local stuff that's been happening, because we've seen a rise in racially motivated hate crimes in the Metro Vancouver area since the pandemic started. We also have to clarify, though, that a lot of these may appear to be racially motivated at first, and that may not be the case. So it speaks to the whole issue of being careful about this kind of footage. And when someone has a cell phone and records it, there's this sort of culture of shaming. So can this sometimes cause harm when it comes to spreading the message about these kind of attacks?
Well, first of all, I want to say that racism and hate experienced by people of color, Indigenous people, and particularly Black individuals and communities is nothing new. Mm-hmm. So that the fact that we're seeing some images during this difficult time of pandemic is just part of racism and hate being captured on some folks' videos and it becoming viral. So first of all, it's nothing new. In terms of the videos and people taking videos, you know, again, I have mixed feelings about that, because on the other hand, people, you know, taking videos of critical instances where people have been, you know, mistreated by the police, for example, or by others, has led to forms of justice for people. But on the other hand, I think what's really critical is that when you see somebody being hurt, being violated, racially attacked, what's really important is what's your role in that, mm-hmm. and what can you do? Like I said, how can you be part of the solution? So simply taking a video and being a bystander and not stepping in to help is not the solution.
And we keep seeing this word systemic. This goes back decades, and it's something that cannot change overnight. But what can the average person do to sort of promote positive change in order to tackle these kind of mindsets?
When we use the word systemic, again, we need to recognize that Canada has a history of discriminatory policies and practices that has impacted marginalized colored community, Indigenous communities through colonization. And so the very first thing we need to do is acknowledge that there's a problem. And I think part of it is that when we see there's a problem, it's really important to try to understand what is the scope of the problem. And so, you know, we, even myself included, during this time of looking at the impact of racism on Black communities, not being a Black person myself, I too need to ask myself and listen. So I think we need to listen with humility, really need to understand without resistance, because it's very easy to say, well, is that really that big of a deal, or people just making a big deal about it? And I think the last thing everybody is, and I think Black community is asking us at this time in history, is to say, what action are you going to take to make things different? And when we talk about systemic racism, we can certainly go inside our workplaces and ask ourselves, how are our practices? How are we treating the public that's coming into our workspaces? How are we treating each other in our workspaces? And I think certainly these things need to start from the top leadership, from the government, our public institutions. What is the experience of racialized people, Indigenous people, when they're accessing services, public services? I mean, there's been very little done with regards to looking at the experiences of people and trying to rectify and change our systems.
All right, some great information there, Ninu. We thank you for your insight, and people can go to the MOSAIC website for more, and you have a good day.
Thank you, Thor.
All right, that's Ninu Kang from MOSAIC. We thank her. And